Gentlemen, thank you for your kind, patient endurance with us. We were supposed to start by 1 o'clock, but I think African time. So please bear with us for this very, very important press conference. Let me start off by introducing people on the high table. To my right is our matriarch, my mother, Dr. Mrs. Grace Siminalayi Braithwaite. She'll be turning 92 years young by God's grace next month. My humble self, Barrister Olumide Braithwaite. Barrister Egbetokun to my right. Mr. Christopher Nwachukwu, who has been with this family for over 40 years, 46 years. Okay, my mother has corrected me. He's been with us for over 50 years, so he is worthy to be on this table. And this is one of the descendants of the Braithwaite clan as well, this young man. This is one of the lawyers in Tunji Braithwaite and Co., Onyidamola Obadiah. And without further ado, I will open this press conference. Mentor and legend Dr. Tunji Braithwaite stood for in his lifetime. We welcome you here to our residence, the Beulah, a fortress, a fountain that gave many protection and wisdom. Last week, Thursday, 20th February 2025, at the IBB book launch held at the Congress Hall of the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, former President Olusegun Obasanjo made certain remarks and comments about our late patriarch, father and well-respected personality, Dr. Tunji Braithwaite. Specifically, in a scurrilous speech meant to, in his words, caution IBB against imminent criticisms of his book, like he deservedly got from my late father when he, Obasanjo, released his uninspiring book years ago. He referred to my father using offensive phrases and snide remarks, such as such a character, apparently to tarnish his hard-earned reputation. It is not, and it will never be, in Obasanjo's place to use Tunji Braithwaite's name as a punch bag. While he was alive, it never happened. In the animal world, the prancing gazelle knows that a lion, lying dead, does not lose its lioness. This is what this press conference is about. The name Tunji Braithwaite still has its bite. Whoever dares to tarnish Tunji Braithwaite's name will have his children and other mass followers to contend with. We only fear God and not man. Proceeding in his speech, Obasanjo accused my father of bad belle, while cautioning IBB to ignore possible criticism that would assail his book. A heavy dose of bad temper crept into his husky voice. He did the unthinkable. We take strong exception to the said comments and hereby join issues with former President General Olusegun Obasanjo, a man renowned for his unbridled penchant for courting trouble. We are Dr. Tunji Braithwaite's proud children, who are well raised to respect elders. We would have ordinarily allowed him to waddle in his world, but for those who may buy into his foxy fables, it is necessary to set the record straight. But before I proceed, let me seize this opportunity in this press conference to commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's comments and conduct at the book launch. I particularly doff my hat off to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who, as a special guest of honor at the occasion, delivered a message from the progressive community to IBB. In no unmistakable terms, he told IBB that he missed a golden opportunity of his long military rule to nurture and deepen democracy in the land. To his credit, the ideological Dr. Tunji Braithwaite, whose entire life, time, and career is today widely read and studied in many history books, home and abroad, hit gold as an outstanding patriot, brilliant lawyer, dogged fighter, and above all, the inimitable irritant to Nigeria's ruinous military juntas during his time. This is the sterling historical Tunji Braithwaite record which Olusegun Obasanjo so peevishly, in an arrant exercise, tried to dissipate. Is defined by Otto von Bismarck, the statesman and former chancellor of the German Reich, as the main thing is to make history, not to write it. In its proper historical context, Tunji Braithwaite was not merely a critic of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. What General Obasanjo ought to have emphasized was that the defiant and legendary Tunji Braithwaite was a fiery critic of all military juntas in Nigeria. For the avoidance of doubt, the Tunji Braithwaite fought against draconian decrees of successive military juntas of Obasanjo, IBB, and Abacha, and on record as a civilian from 1977 to 1998, fought their inhumane treatment of the masses of this country. Juggling my memory, I believe that the bad belle charge he so eloquently referred to in his speech must have emanated from history in 1978, when the Ransom Kuti family sought Tunji Braithwaite's legal counsel in defending Fela and Kuti against the brutal military regime of Obasanjo. The great Tunji Braithwaite had no cause for bad belly against anyone because he was a fulfilled and accompanied man in his chosen course of life. For Obasanjo to make such careless statements against Tunji Braithwaite leaves a sour taste in the mouth. History will recount how Fela's house was burnt to the ground. His mother, late Chief Mrs. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, was thrown out from a one-story building by soldiers acting on the orders of Obasanjo's regime of terror. The Fela case, which became a benchmark of fundamental human rights law in Nigeria, was fought up to the Supreme Court, even though they were denied justice. The legacy of Fela's music in his own criticism of the military junta is alive today in Afrobeat music. When Tunji Braithwaite, the renowned human rights lawyer, floated his political party, the Nigeria Advance Party, NAP, in 1978 to contest the 1979 general elections alongside Alhaji Shehu Shagari, Dr. Nnamdi Kanu, and Chief Obafemi Awolowo, his party, despite meeting all the constitutional criteria for registration, was denied registration by the Obasanjo junta. Undeterred, in 1983, the NAP eventually got registration and contested the general elections alongside NPN, UPN, NPP, GNPP, and PRP, prior to the military coup d'etat of General Buhari and Idi Agbon that overthrew Shagari's government. Now, what many Nigerians don't know is that IBB used to pay personal visits to this house, to this very same sitting room where this press conference is being held today in the late 1970s. He became a friend to my father, and as a little boy, I saw him in this very sitting room in his green uniform, often accompanied by his close friend, General Aliyu Gusau. My dear mother, who is seated by my right, by the grace of God will be 92 years old next month, is alive today as a living witness. My mother was the general practitioner and pediatrician to Aliyu Gusau's babies, then at her clinic at Okesuna Street. To my knowledge, IBB drew close to my father, studied him, and was intrigued by his political views, read his books and journals. When IBB staged the coup in 1985, Tunji Braithwaite continued to fight for the rights of the masses of this country against the dictatorial, tyrannical, and oppressive military juntas characterized by state-sponsored terrorism against its civilian citizens, often at great personal cost and sacrifices to his life, livelihood, security, and health. Unknown to many Nigerians, the military juntas of IBB crippled and destroyed his businesses because of his principled and defiant stance against their dictatorships, particularly that of IBB. The late Chief Gani Fayemi and others were inspired by his unwavering quest to see the enthronement of democracy in Nigeria. In 1990, after the Gideon Orka coup, Tunji Braithwaite was arrested and detained by the IBB junta for his criticism. He was labeled as an alleged coup plotter. This house, venue of this press conference, witnessed 2 truckloads of heavily armed soldiers that stormed the premises in the middle of the night to whisk away Tunji Braithwaite to an unknown location. It was former Attorney General of the Federation, the late Dr. Oluono Gurua, who led a team of lawyers to fight for his release in court. In 1993, prior to the general elections, the late Chief MKO Abiola sought the support of Tunji Braithwaite, which he granted without hesitation. However, he gave his support despite his views and advice as to the lack of sincerity in that electoral process. In other words, Tunji Braithwaite saw through the facade of that flawed handover process. Such men are heroes in our history, whilst their legacies are intact. If the state hasn't correctly honored them, the people of this great nation know the true place in history they occupy. In 1998, when the late General Sani Abacha was declared as the sole and consensus presidential candidate by all 5 political parties, Tunji Braithwaite objected and contested against Abacha, again at serious personal risk to his life as a civilian at that time, when many took to their heels in exile for fear of their lives. At the death of Tunji Braithwaite in 2016, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came to this house to pay his last respects to the elder statesman, Tunji Braithwaite. Also, former Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo came to pay his respects. Where was General Obasanjo, despite being a Yoruba man from the Southwest? In summary, ladies and gentlemen, former President Olusegun Obasanjo should be more careful in his choice of words and be more mindful of the context of such comments when it comes to history, especially made in the presence of military oligarchs watched on television by a teeming population of Nigerians. The legacy of the military juntas in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. In terms of social justice and equity for its citizens, it is zero, whilst their penchant for corruption, abuse of the rule of law, and state terrorism and looting of the treasury is 100%. There can never be a case of bad belle from brave and courageous civilians like the legendary Tunji Braithwaite, who stood up to gun-wielding men in uniform. There can never be a case of bad belly where former President Obasanjo is still struggling and battling with indictments of misappropriation of alleged billions of dollars that went missing under his regime for the NEPA project that had further sunk Nigerians into stark darkness till date. There can never be a case of bad belly where in 2013, his own daughter, Senator Iyabo Obasanjo, abused her father of all manner of atrocities. As the only son of Dr. Tunji Braithwaite, I will continue to defend his legacy as a mentor and as a father. There cannot be a greater responsibility. There can never be bad belly for someone who, after descending into obscurity, is always seeking relevance and validation at ceremonial gatherings. Rather than extol noble virtues, ex-President Obasanjo prefers to demean revered personalities like my father with snide remarks. Legacy is not what's left tomorrow when you are gone. It is what you give, create, and contribute whilst you are here. That quote is taken from Seth Godin, the American author. The legacy is already cemented without the need for man-made titles or without the need for self-aggrandizement. And last, but by no means least, Dr. Tunji Braithwaite has immense integrity. Despite never holding any public office or appointment in his lifetime, he has nonetheless inspired a generation that cuts across ethnic, religious boundaries that include professionals, politicians, activists, philosophers, writers, poets, industrialists, and youths, both home and abroad. A more befitting reference to my late father by General Obasanjo would have been to describe him as an exemplary nationalist. Indeed, Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for whom I served as a spokesperson as the APC Tinubu-Shettima presidential campaign in 2023, was also inspired by the great Dr. Tunji Braithwaite of best memory. I know this for a fact because Mr. President told me so. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Friends, are you demanding apology from the former presidents of this country where
No, I'm not demanding for an apology. We have joined issues with him. He has called us out. And these are the implications and the results. Ordinarily, we shouldn't have to demand an apology. A man of honor, where he errs, he doesn't need anybody to ask him. He would do the right thing. His conscience would prick him, or the sense of goodness will overcome him, and he will do the right thing. So we're not asking for an apology. We are replying him.
Sandra Ume, news editor, News Agency of Nigeria. Okay, just an addendum to the question asked by my colleague here. You are not asking for an apology. So I would want to ask, do you intend instituting a legal action to seek redress for this wrong, you being a legal luminary yourself?
Thank you very much. Obviously, that question is coming from a fellow lawyer. It's very loaded, and it's a very, very appropriate question. We reserve the right to issue our proceedings and to take legal action. We reserve that right, but the purpose of this press conference is to address the issue and to let the world know that we will not stand by any attempt to tarnish our Patriarch's well-earned legacy. Thank you.
That will be all.
Of you. And I hope you will keep on, because my husband has fought a lot of battles by this uncouth and cold leaders in this country. I had to suffer too. I have to suffer too, because they are, I don't know, let it stop. And I want us to record this thing very, 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 very well. It's not just reading and that's the end of it. It isn't the end of it. Because after the second one, you know, they came here to get my husband at the middle of the night, and I was here too, and they took him over to Apapa military something. I was crying, I was doing all sorts of things. That wasn't even the end. They went further. What was it that they did? That same thing. You know, they took him from there and brought him. For what? For what? What has he done? I'm talking about my husband now. His father. They took him to the worst. I did not even know they had that sort of rubbish in Nigeria. The Apapa. And they kept him there for no reason at all. So this works on your side. And I'm asking God to make you not to be afraid. My husband was kept for two weeks.
No, 3 months.
3 months. It was 3 months. I was going from here to what is that place? Military hospital. I saw those boys, how terrible they looked. I had been battered and everything. The co-pilots I'm talking about. You know, the photo is still on my side. I was just wondering, what next it is? Could you imagine taking my husband for 3 months in this country for nothing that he had done? Just you let us know whether this claim by the children, by those boys, were true or not. Just that was what he said. It was bad. They took those children, they battered them, they killed all of them, of course, because we saw some of them in the church, in the hospital. So, this, I hope, I'm believing God that you will take this speech. You take this speech seriously. You don't just say that it has gone, because you've got the same people who had been so horrible to this land. They're still there. And you have to fight your battle. Nobody will fight your battle for you, except God will fight your battle. So don't just think we just came to listen to what he said. This thing happened how many years ago? And it's going to happen again, because look at them there. Look at them in the government thing. They're a disgrace to the whole world, I would say, not only to Nigeria, but to the whole world. Thank you, my children. Thank you very much.